Okay, so welcome back to the deep dive. Today's dive is, well, we're really digging into some fascinating stuff from the stack of material. We've been looking at articles, some fresh research notes, everything centered around what's bubbling up right now in AI.
Mm,
Our mission today, for you listening, is to just kind of cut through the noise,
right.
get to the really good insights, the key developments, maybe some surprising things you might have missed. We're going to unpack all this material together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to feel a bit swamped with how fast AI is moving. So
Yeah?
this dive is about helping you connect the dots, understand the significance of these latest developments. It's like we're
Yeah.
looking at both the really practical, immediate applications and some of these big, almost foundational shifts happening underneath the surface.
Exactly. So let's jump in. And I want to start with something that, when we were going through the sources, felt incredibly impactful, maybe a little mind-blowing, honestly.
Okay.
It's this project called Fragle, coming out of Singapore.
Fragle, right.
The core idea here is detecting incredibly tiny traces of cancer using just a small blood sample. Like, picture this using AI to potentially spot cancer before you even have symptoms. I mean, that feels like sci-fi, right?
It really does.
But the material suggests it's getting real.
What's really striking about Fraggle, based on what we read, is how it does it. It's looking for something called circulating tumor DNA, or ctDNA.
ctDNA, yeah.
These are microscopic bits of DNA that break off from cancer cells and float around in your bloodstream.
Okay.
Now, the key detail the research highlighted is that these ctDNA fragments tend to be slightly different sizes than the healthy DNA fragments also floating around.
Different sizes.
Yeah, and Fraggle's AI is trained to spot that subtle size difference. It's using this quiet biological signature as its marker.
Oh, okay. So it's not trying to find a whole tumor. It's looking for these molecular crumbs, like tiny clues.
Exactly, these tiny clues in the blood, yeah.
And the practical uses they outline in the sources, they're pretty significant, right? Like, it could be that early warning system you mentioned, or...
Or catching a cancer relapse way sooner.
Right, or even knowing quickly if a specific treatment isn't working, that kind of thing.
Right. And the sources emphasize this isn't just theoretical anymore. They've trained the AI on data from whole genome sequencing, looking at DNA sizes from actual cancer patients versus healthy individuals.
Mm.
And it's already entered clinical trials with over 100 patients in Singapore who are currently undergoing cancer treatment. So it's, moving through those necessary steps towards real-world use.
Okay, but here's where my jaw kind of dropped, digging into the cost part. We looked at what a typical ctDNA test costs today, and the sources put it anywhere up to, what, $780?
Yeah, around that. Expensive.
Okay. But Fraggle's method, it's coming in at just $39. $39! That is, I mean, that's a wild difference.
It really is, $39. And the implications of that massive cost reduction are profound, according to the material.
Like what?
Well, it suddenly makes frequent monitoring feasible. The sources even use the phrase like a live feed for tracking.
Wow, a live feed.
And this is huge. It could potentially make high-quality cancer monitoring accessible globally, not just something limited to wealthy nations or specialized private hospitals.
That's huge. And they designed it smartly too, didn't they? The sources pointed out it was built with adoption in mind.
Uh-huh.
It integrates seamlessly with standard DNA profiling labs already out there. You don't need new expensive machines or require massive retraining for technicians.
Right. It's designed to work alongside existing tools, which makes rolling it out, well, much more realistic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that focus on practical integration that turns it from an interesting lab project into something with real potential to change clinical practice.
So what does it all mean then?
What this all means is it points towards a future where maybe, just maybe, cancer detection could become as relatively routine as, say, getting your cholesterol checked during an annual physical. That would fundamentally shift the paradigm for how we manage the disease.
Wow. Okay, so that's a super tangible, impactful application, obviously. Now let's pivot from something concrete in healthcare to something a bit more abstract maybe, but potentially even more foundational for AI itself.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about MIT's SEAL project.
Ah, SEAL.
And the hook here is, what if AI could learn by literally teaching itself, like self-improvement on steroids?
This is fascinating stuff from the research papers we reviewed. SEAL stands for Self-Adapting LLMs, Large Language Models.
Self-adapting LLMs, right?
It's a framework where an LLM doesn't just process data fed to it, it trains itself.
How does that even work? Like, what's the mechanism?
Based on the descriptions, it involves the AI creating its own synthetic data to learn from.
Its own data.
Yeah, it updates its own internal instructions on how to learn more effectively. And it even makes its own adjustments, like tweaking its weights, the parameters within the model that determine how it processes information.
So it's like,
It's essentially generating its own self-edits or revision notes, as you could think of it.
okay, that's kind of weirdly human-like, like
Yeah.
writing your own study guide before a test.
Exactly. And the results cited in the source material are pretty wild. They report it's already outperforming GPT 4.1 on some specific tasks.
Already. Wow.
And this is key. It learned more effectively from the data it generated itself, its own notes, than it did from material generated by GPT 4.1 for it to learn from.
Whoa. Hold on. So the AI's own teaching method, its own notes, are better for it than being taught by another top AI model.
That's what the results suggest.
Yeah.
And it raises this really interesting question. What does it mean if an AI system can figure out the best way for it to learn, tailoring its process to its own internal architecture or style?
Like finding its own learning style.
Exactly. Much like how some humans find their own revision notes more effective than just rereading a textbook.
Yeah. And they mentioned a dramatic improvement in something specific, right? Like puzzle solving. I remember reading that.
They did. The source highlighted a jump in certain puzzle-solving tasks. Using standard methods, the AI had a 0% success rate. 0.
0%. Okay.
But after going through the SEAL self-training process, it jumped to 72.5% success.
72.5 from 0.
From 0. That's a huge, huge leap.
A huge leap, totally.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what SEAL and similar frameworks they mentioned, like Sakana's work on dynamic graph models, DGM,
Right.
what they're exploring is LLMs that can potentially evolve continuously without needing to be retrained from scratch by humans every time.
Continuously evolving.
Yeah, this mechanism, this idea of self-improvement and continuous adaptation, it's central to a lot of the theoretical discussions around things like AGI or artificial general intelligence.
Yeah.
And even speculation about superintelligence. It's not just about AI getting slightly smarter. It's about changing a fundamental mechanism by which it gets smarter, potentially in real time.
Okay, so circling back to you listening, what does all this mean? It means the AI landscape we're looking at isn't just about incremental updates to the tools we use. It's about AI potentially changing in really fundamental ways, involving its own capabilities and learning processes, maybe right before our eyes. It's a totally different dynamic.
It's a different ballgame, really.
Okay, so we've looked at a concrete application in healthcare, a foundational shift in how AI learns. Now let's kind of sweep up some of the other really interesting nuggets from the material we reviewed.
Sure.
It's a mix of practical stuff, some industry gossip, and some definitely some quirky things.
Sounds good. Starting on the educational side, something we noted was Anthropic releasing a free 12-lesson course they call AI Fluency.
AI fluency, okay.
The source points out it goes beyond just prompting tips, which is what a lot of courses focus on.
Yeah.
This one actually involves planning and executing a real AI project yourself.
Oh, hands-on.
Yeah, hands-on, and you get a certificate. Could be a useful resource for anyone wanting to dive deeper themselves.
Oh, that sounds cool. And then there's the stuff that just makes you laugh, like V0's CAPTCHA contest.
Right. V0 is running a contest for the most ridiculous CAPTCHA.
Ridiculous how?
The example the source gave was literally, are you human or are you dancer?
Chuckles, what, like, is that from a song?
It is, yeah. The Killers, I think.
Yeah.
But as a cap show, it's pretty out there.
Totally unhinged. The winner gets $1,000 in credits, which feels about right for inducing that level of existential confusion.
Chuckles, definitely. On the technical side, we saw a mention of a builder combining different cutting-edge models, Claude Code, plus OpenAI's O3 model, plus Gemini 2.5.
Okay, stacking models.
Yeah, all working together through something called MCP.
Sure.
Think of it like getting different AI superpowers to team up.
Like the Avengers.
The source described it exactly like the Avengers of AI models. Yeah.
Okay, MCP. What's MCP stand for? Like, is that a specific framework or?
You know, the source didn't spell out the acronym, unfortunately, but the description implied it's a method or platform for getting diverse models to collaborate on tasks, sharing strengths.
Got it.
It just highlights this trend of people trying to orchestrate multiple powerful AIs rather than relying on just one.
Okay, got it. Like a meta layer for AIs. Okay, now, here's where things get a little less fun, maybe, based on some analysis we read.
No.
There's this idea gaining traction that ChatGPT and other early generative models might have polluted the internet so badly that it's actually hindering future AI development.
Yeah, this is a significant potential downside highlighted in the material. The concept is sometimes referred to as model collapse.
Model collapse, right. I've heard that term.
The theory is that as AI models are increasingly trained on data from the internet, and the internet is increasingly filled with text and images generated by earlier AI models,
Right.
we start training new models on the output of old models,
Oh.
rather than on truly human-generated data.
It's like feeding photocopies to a copier over and over, and eventually the copies just degrade.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. You lose the richness, the nuance, the sheer originality of genuinely human expression and data. The sources noted that this AI-generated spam has potentially tainted a lot of modern internet data. What's striking is they said explicitly that data generated before 2022 is now considered gold.
Before 2022 is gold. Wow.
Yeah, because it's much less likely to be this kind of AI-generated synthetic stuff. It's a consequence that, maybe wasn't fully anticipated when these models first came out.
That is a wild, unintended consequence. Like, the internet just got less useful for training the very things it helped create.
Potentially,
Yeah.
yeah. And it raises big questions about where future training data will come from, right?
Yes. Okay, speaking of models interacting, we saw some mentions of a little AI beef, didn't we?
Oh, yes. Claude 4 apparently co-authored what one source described as a spicy takedown of a recent research paper put out by Apple.
A takedown.
Yeah, saying it, and I quote, "kinda sucks."
Chuckles. Seriously. AI models reviewing and criticizing each other's academic work now. That's a whole new level of meta.
It really is. It shows this emerging dynamic within the AI research community where the models themselves are starting to participate in the academic discourse, even if prompted by humans, of course. It's fascinating to watch that unfold.
Totally fascinating. And just briefly touching on the industry and business side from the sources, we read that Google apparently had to invent this role, a chief AI architect, because despite having incredible research models, they still seem to struggle turning that cutting-edge stuff into usable, consumer-ready products.
Yeah, it suggests a disconnect between their theoretical breakthroughs and their practical application pipeline, which is, a common challenge.
True. Meanwhile, big money is still flowing into the space. One venture studio was noted for raising $190 million, specifically targeting AI applications in healthcare and finance.
Yeah, those remain huge areas for AI development and investment. Makes sense.
And there were even mentions, kind of whispers, of potential cracks in the OpenAI Microsoft relationship.
Yeah, saw that too. Always interesting dynamics between the big players.
While OpenAI also reportedly bagged a $200 million deal with the U.S. military for wargaming.
Right, so that just shows the diverse and sometimes conflicting arenas where AI is having an impact. From defense to healthcare to corporate strategy, it's everywhere.
It really is.
And just quickly to wrap up this segment, the sources listed a whole bunch of these new, often specialized AI tools coming out, giving you a sense of the breadth of what's being built.
Right, like Cdance Pro for generating videos from text, Instance for turning ideas into apps or games without coding,
FluidWorks for personalized guidance, Wonderish for building no-code web pages easily.
Scribe for automatically creating how-to guides from screen recordings. That sounds useful.
Yeah, definitely. And even updates to existing tools like ChatGPT Canvas now letting you export to PDF, or Google's video model Veo already having a short film premiere at Tribeca Festival.
Yeah, stuff is just happening everywhere at all levels. It's hard to keep up.
It really is.
And just one last quick hit from the material, a little reminder that individual effort still matters. A story about a woman who won $10K in a machine learning competition in just 1 week.
Nice.
So it's not all huge companies and labs. Individuals are still making waves too.
Absolutely. Good reminder.
Okay, wow. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We started with that incredible, potentially revolutionary application of AI in healthcare with Fragle.
Yeah, the $39 test.
Right. Moved to the cutting edge of how AI learns and evolves with MIT's SEAL project.
The self-teaching AI.
Exactly. And then just got a rapid-fire snapshot of the incredibly diverse, sometimes weird and rapidly changing landscape with all those other points from model collapse and AI beef to new tools and industry shifts.
Hopefully going through these sources together helps you see some of the underlying patterns, the key developments, and ultimately the potential impact on you.
Yeah.
It's by getting that knowledge quickly, but still getting a real sense of the depth and breadth of what's happening.
Right. This is just a snapshot, of course, but
Yeah.
hopefully it gives you a much clearer picture of some of the most interesting and significant things happening in AI right now.
And if we leave you with one final thought, based on everything we've discussed today, If AI systems are becoming increasingly capable of teaching themselves, adapting and evolving continuously without constant human intervention,
Mm-hmm.
what does that fundamentally change about our timeline for technological progress, or even our definition of intelligence itself, in the years to come?
Yeah.
Something to really mull over.
Absolutely. Keep exploring, keep learning.